Alrighty, and we are live. I
Hello.
normally like to give it a couple of moments. I think I'm not quite sure. There is a little bit of a delay or a lag for people entering, but um, welcome everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good day, good evening. My name is Tiffany Hill Cook, and I run a spiritual practice called the Healing Hill. And um, Sundays on my channel anyway is all about um, conversations with individuals who have a story to share or are practicing in some dimension of spirituality. And so today's guest is Vanessa Bright. And I had the pleasure of being introduced to Vanessa through a mutual friend, Janice Stoliarova. And I think a couple of months ago, we started communicating with the intention of having this date together. Um, what we're going to be chatting about today, I never fully know, but Vanessa is a psychotherapist, and she recently had an experience with plant medicine, specifically ayahuasca. And so, what we're going to be chatting about today, what is that experience? The integration of that experience subsequently, even how that ties into the work that you do with the souls that you work with, and really for me, I guess rooted in it would be also just kind of unveiling some of the misnomers associated to that energy, and just learning about you. So if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself, Vanessa, and sharing with folks a little bit about yourself.
Yeah. How do you introduce yourself, right? When it's a lifetime. I mean, it's truly, where do you start? I am a psychotherapist. My field, my area is psychoanalysis, but I am kind of being guided to kind of a more broad way of practicing. I'm integrating spirituality. Now I'm not serving plant medicine, but I am integrating the understanding of it, how much healing it offers, and then helping people integrate their journeys. I've had clients who were bringing me their journeys and sharing them before I ever had one of my own. And one of them really actually deeply inspired me. She wasn't the only one who brought me to it, but she played a huge part because she did a number of ceremonies that really just were amazing to me to hear and watch her grow, watch her life start to change. So, yeah, so that's the plant spirit. And I will say too, the retreat that I was on, and I'll kind of go more deeply into it, but it was two medicines. One was ayahuasca, and the other one was huachuma, which is also known as San Pedro, which is a type of cactus. And they are paired in the same retreat for a good reason. So it's not just, oh, let's try this and let's see which one affects you more. San Pedro is done after ayahuasca, a couple of days, to help you integrate, to help you ground, come back to your body. So, but each of them is their own teacher. They teach in very different ways. So, and I had very different lessons from each.
That's so beautiful. I'm wondering, where do we want to start? Well, how did you get into the work that you do currently? What guided you to even become a psychotherapist, or I think you said a psychoanalyst?
Right.
What led you down that path?
So it's sort of like rewinding back, and I might as well just go back to back. So when I was in college, I was studying computer science. That was what was, good at the time. I have an analytical mind. It fit me. I was almost one of the only girls in my class by the end. And then in my last year of college, I met this acupuncturist who was like, my life turned around because somebody was listening to me and making sense of me. Somebody cared. It was almost like a therapist, but I didn't know it then. And then I was receiving therapeutic touch. And then I was, it was just a lot was coming up, and I got so excited and I got so inspired that I went into acupuncture school right after college. I worked in a computer science for like a minute and a half, and just was out, went to school full time, became an acupuncturist, which is a 5-year training. Very intensive, exhausting. Like I was 22. It took me 5 years to get through college too. So I was 22. I started acupuncture school, was not ready to be a healer, did not know anything about boundaries or my own trauma or, and honestly, the school really just wanted money. So they accepted everybody. They really should. I mean, not that they shouldn't have accepted me, because I don't regret going there, but I was just too green, too young. And so I get my license. Now you have to start a practice and start making money. And it was a lot. Right at the end of that, so a year before that program ended, I met a psychoanalyst who was teaching at my acupuncture school. She was teaching clinical counseling courses. I loved her. I went into therapy with her. She helped me get through the last couple of year-ish or so. And then, into the beginning of starting my practice, my acupuncture, I started a community clinic, but I started therapy. It's intense. I went so deep. I got so depressed. It was so much. And then she died. I was like smack dab in the middle of all of it. Brand new practice, depressed, anxious, so much. And then she died. I had already been thinking about becoming a therapist just because it really revealed to me how much there is in each person. And it also frustrated me that when people came in for acupuncture, they wanted you to fix them. They didn't actually want to do the work. And so after Susan died, her name is Susan Harding, after she died, I was like, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to be a therapist. Became a therapist. And then had a wonderful therapist who helped me through the grief. I stayed with her for 8 years, and really, yeah. Susan, I was seeing Susan for almost 3 years when she died. So the relationship was deep. It was devastating. It was like the worst.
Is what I get.
Yeah. I think she is now one of my guides.
100%. Yeah, she's with you.
I had a dream about her recently where I was like, oh, she's back. And I was like, wait, she can't be back. She's gone. And I'm like, and then I hear her on the phone. You ready, Vanessa? I'm like, okay.
Wow.
So I think she's one of my guides now, or maybe always has been and just dipped in to help me for a minute.
Especially if you got that message from a telephone, how I would discern that would be that and if somebody's listening or watching this that does, dream interpretation or analysis, please let me know. But telephones and dreams deal with the gift of clairaudience.
Mm-hmm.
Your ability to hear, your psychic ability to hear. So it's interesting. I wonder if that specifically is the way that she communicates with you.
Interesting. Well, I did work on this dream with Janice.
Oh, you did? Okay, beautiful.
Yeah, and there's a lot in that dream there's a lot in a lot of my dreams about psychic abilities, shaman abilities, hands-on healing. I just pretty much got them all. It's just a matter of picking and kind of going deeper on them.
Yeah.
But so I became a therapist because I was like, okay, people are actually going to come to me who really want to do the work. Yeah, not so much.
Yeah.
I'm absolutely kidding. People do want to heal, right? Yeah. But they are still going to have their resistances no matter what, So interesting. And for a long time, I still wavered even within the profession. I was like, am I supposed to, this is like so hard. I didn't know why it was so hard. I was working on all my issues. I had so much supervision. I had so many classes. I read so many books. Why was it still so hard? And it took me a very long time of like a lot of just like staying with it. And honestly, this retreat like really shifted it for me. So I got my license in 2016. So like a while back. I started seeing clients in 2012 as part of my training. The whole time up to 2023, the end of the year, I went. I was still like, I was a little better, but I would still kind of have that feeling of getting through, like, and, my clients get something out of it. Like they wouldn't keep seeing me if they weren't getting something out of the work. But it was one of those things where something was just like, not quite, not quite aligned. And I couldn't figure out what it was until very recently. So it's a long story, but it always is, how one becomes what they become.
100%. What's interesting too is I wonder about your journey, is that you had a mentor essentially guide you to the next chapter. And I wonder if that's the role that you play in other people's lives, that you had to experience what that was so that you can be that for others.
Yeah, very likely.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Well, let's see here. How I guess I'm just gonna like jump into that most recent experience. How did you? I don't know if it's. How do I want to say this? It's not like you can maybe Google, right, and just find these things. It's Burning Man, right? Like you might need to know somebody who knows somebody. And so walk me through the process of even identifying a place you want to sit in ceremony, and what maybe even there's a vetting process that they have on their end. I don't know.
Well, with ayahuasca in particular, it is said you need to hear the call. It needs to be like a yes in your body. So a good friend of mine, Christy, invited me. She was part of this group. I think she's not anymore, but she was, and she was like a co-facilitator or something. She's invited me to ayahuasca ceremonies 2 or 3 times prior that were much easier to get to than Mexico, let's say. Much easier. I was like, no, not for me. It was just a straight up no, not even like, why are you even inviting me?
Yeah.
Except she probably sensed in me that at some point it'll be a yes. And she never pressed. You never press someone. If you hear the call, it's not like a maybe. You know what I mean?
I understand that. Yeah.
It's not a maybe. So Christy messaged me for some other reason. I don't even know. And she's like, oh, by the way, if you want to come, we're doing this retreat. And then before I even had a chance to think about it, the next text was a photo. And the photo literally was like a communal table with nobody at it. It was just in a beautiful setting. And I saw that picture and it was like, oh, I just felt that same jolt in my body. It was like shivers and I was like, how the hell am I even going to afford this? Because although it's less expensive than many, you could be paying $5,000-$10,000 for a retreat. This was like $3,500 or something, all inclusive, except for the flights. It didn't matter because the yes was such a yes. And I looked at my husband and I was like, oh my God, what this just happened. I'm sitting at my crafts table, like looking at my phone and going, shit, this just happened. He's like, well, you're going. I'm like, but money. And he says, whatever. It's just money. We'll figure it out. And so, but I also feel like I got tremendously lucky because this group is the real deal. I didn't have to go through any like awful, or poorly organized group or anything like that. I really recommend them. They're called City of Light Peru.
Okay.
I'm actually going to be joining their staff eventually as an integration therapist, because what a natural fit, but the shaman that held the ceremonies for us is just unbelievable. So real, so authentic as a human, but also really knows his stuff, knows how to hold space. Because with ayahuasca, you're opening, talk about portals. You're opening portals left and right. And some of them not so good, and you need a shaman and apprentices, and like you need a team holding that space, moving things out, moving things in, helping people go through something. So the real deal. And I'm going again at the end of the year. This time it's going to be in Peru. And that was a yes for me while I was still in Mexico. That was a yes for me right away. That was more of like I need to continue, It was, yeah.
That's
And
so
the thing is too, it's not an easy ceremony. I'm talking about ayahuasca. Huachuma can be difficult too. But ayahuasca, and I can launch into it if you want my
that's what we're
whole.
here for. Yes, that's what we're here for.
It was harrowing. It was harrowing. It was so hard. And so I'll tell you what the hard part was. And then, like the next morning when I woke up, I just like tuned into the medicine, because the medicine stays in your body for a long time. And I felt so much love for the medicine. I was like, okay, I feel loved. And the harrowing part needed to happen. And I don't regret it. I don't want to relive it, but I will if I need to, So what ended up happening was that I was put into my earliest abandonment trauma. It's so abandonment being, my mom was a single mom. My father left. I was 10 months old. He was not ready to be a dad. He bolted. It was just the two of us. And this is Soviet Russia in the 80s, early 80s. We were living in a city that was far away from her parents. So it was literally just the two of us. She has to go to work. She can't afford to pay a babysitter. So she'll leave me in the crib for a bunch of hours by myself. Maybe not the entire workday. I don't know how she did it, if she went back and forth. I know she had like periodic babysitters, but anyway, I know I was in the crib for hours on end by myself. So you can imagine, and I feel that emotion too. You can imagine how horrible that is for an infant, and for, an infant, really, a child, a baby. So now ayahuasca is a ceremony that's done at night. And by the way, it's so cool that you're wearing white. You wear white ceremonies to honor the medicine.
Wow.
I don't think I've ever seen you wear white.
No, I just got this T-shirt like last week, and I was like, oh, I'll wear this today. So that's
I wanted to wear white to honor the medicine.
Yeah.
It's done at night in what's called a maloka, which is the sacred space. It's basically like a gigantic screened gazebo.
Okay.
You're on mats on the ground. So all the lights are down. If there's any ambient light coming from like a street light somewhere outside, that's it. It's dark.
Okay.
It's meant that way because you're going in.
Yeah.
And I'm going in and I'm alone in there, and I feel so alone. So alone. And then I have to pee. But at some point when you have to pee and you're in the medicine and the medicine is really, really acting, you can't go by yourself. You need somebody to walk in. But you're in a room full of 30 people, some of whom are purging. So there's sounds, some of whom you're supposed to be quiet when you're like crying or things like that. But if you're purging, you can't control that, right? So and then there's also music playing. They're called Ikaros, medicine songs. Anyway, the point is, if you need help, you're supposed to say help, but you're in the medicine. And here comes like one of the first challenges, which is asking for help. Now, I'm an infant in a crib by myself, crying and screaming, back to the infant life, right? Nobody comes. Your calls for help, I internalized as useless, right? Why would I keep crying? You know,
They're unanswered.
they're unanswered. Yeah. And then you're more alone. So then why ever ask for help? So immediately, and a lot of people, I think, experience this in the ayahuasca ceremonies because you actually have to ask for help. You can't do it by yourself. Towards the end, when the medicine's wearing off, you can start, but you're shaky, and you're woozy and everything. So now I didn't have the words for all of this when I was that first portion. But at some point I had to pee. It was like, I can't hold it anymore. And eventually I'm like, help, nobody comes because I was too soft. And then I recreate that experience, right, of nobody coming. I was like, I just wasn't loud enough. But you're in a medicine, like you can't think very straight, Anyway, so I muster up my lungs, and then I call out for help. And lucky me, who comes to help me but the shaman's partner, Natalia, who speaks Russian, which I do. I was the only person in the retreat who spoke Russian. We connected. She's walking me to the bathroom, speaking my mother language right?
Yeah.
Oh my God. And the thing is, I've been in the States for 31 years. My English is better than my Russian by a millionfold, but I know enough. And I know things like mom,
Yeah.
So she walks me to the bathroom and back. And I'm like, oh my God, I cannot go back to the Maloka. It's too dark. Can we sit outside? And it's Mexico. It's like 78 degrees outside. It's perfect. And she said, okay, we'll sit outside. And she sat with me. And I'm telling you, I sobbed into her shoulder. And she goes, there's a little inner little girl, baby girl in you that is so traumatized.
Yeah.
And I was sitting in that spot. There were candles on the tall candles on the ground. I just have this image of looking at one of those candles and being like, my mom's love was this candle-sized little, that's all she had. She meant well, but she was 23. And I had this moment of forgiving her, just being like, you know what? God freaking bless you. You were pushed to get married at 22 before you were ready. You didn't love your boyfriend at the time, my father. You were afraid to be an old maid. That whole stupid old school, old world mentality. You had a baby and your husband leaves you. Like, oh my God. She did so much and she did her best. And I had this moment sitting there by that Maloka and the candle is my image, and I'm sitting with Natalia. So here's an interesting thing that happened right after this. I had to pee again. We're still outside. She walks me back to the bathroom and we come back to the entrance to the Maloka. And I'm like, I can't go back in there. Because, and then this is where she was able to point this out to me, where she's like, that represents your crib. You don't want to go back, but you're not going back to a crib. You're going voluntarily. You're going to heal. And she told me, she's like, I'm not going to stay with you this time. She said, you can stay outside. You have choice, but I'm not going to stay with you. She's like, I'm here. She's going to go back inside. She's like, at some point, please do come back in and lie down. Your body needs to heal. And that was so hard because, right, I had to kind of relive a little bit of that abandonment, but I also had enough presence in me to know I was not being abandoned. I did just do a big chunk of work on that with, the candle and my mom. And then Natalia was like, I'm going to go inside. You need to be by yourself now. She's like, integrate what you just did right? And integrate the fact that you're not abandoned and you can't be abandoned anymore, right? So, sidebar, I did so much work on this in my therapy that I was partly angry because what the actual, you know, that really this is still my core trauma. I was so mad.
In that moment,
In that moment, I was a little mad.
Okay.
For the rest of the retreat, I was really mad.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah.
I was really mad because 12 years of therapy, you know? Oh, so she leaves and I stay outside and I'm like, okay, and I'm doing some work. And then I was kind of struggling with, like I knew I needed to go inside eventually. I wasn't quite ready and that was okay. But then there were other people outside just from our retreat. Some people take like a tiny little walk. Some people get a little disoriented. I mean, they tell us like, don't go further than the right outside the Maloka, but people still go, and you need the sky sometimes, and you need a little moving air. You need to be away from people who are puking, like, you know, for like a little bit. And so my retreat brother, now my actual brother, I won't name names because I didn't ask permission from anyone if I could use their names, but comes up and he's kind of like shaky. And I say, so here I am, Natalia just left. I'm like, I'm supposed to be alone, but here's my brother coming and shaky. He's shaky. He looks dazed and he looks like he's not okay.
Yeah.
Now I'm a natural therapist and healer and I'm trying to avoid being by myself. Perfect combination. So I'm like, hey, do you need a hug? And he kind of like thinks about it. He's like, yeah, I think a hug would be okay. So I stumble over there because I'm also wobbling. And I hug him and I look him in the eye. And oh my God, was that a soul meeting of like epic proportions. I can't even describe it. It was amazing. I could see through him. I knew we've known each other for lifetimes. And he's a man of color, and, you know, gotta admit our biases and our issues. And my mother is so phobic that way. She was like, you are not marrying a man of, you know, you're not marrying a black. I'm like, why not? She goes, I don't want black babies, black grandchildren. I was like, not your choice, Mom. But had to work through that, right, for myself. But I'm looking at this man and like, I love you, not romantically, but love you so deeply, just like, and you know, we've talked about it since. It was tremendous. It was a very different experience for him for a very different reason. We're different. Like, I'm probably like at least a decade older than him. White woman, you know, like black man, completely, you know. Anyway, amazing experience. He sits down nearby. We're just basically kind of bearing it, you know, because he's having a rough go. I'm having a rough go. And, you know, it's like just sitting. And then I remember Natalia saying, you need to be alone. So I kind of like turned my body away a little bit so that I could be with my own experience. I'm like, okay, he's right here. If I need a minute, if I need support, I can always turn, even though he's in medicine himself and he probably should not be helping me. But it was one of those things where it's so hard, right? Being alone for me is just like that much trauma. And I'm an introvert. I like being alone. But
well, understandably, I could not even imagine being born, which is almost like,
oh, did we lose Tiffany? Hey, Tiffany, we lost you. So it says we're still live, so I guess I'm up, right? I wish I could see if there were people here. I'm gonna see if I can connect to my account here. Sorry, guys. Tiffany, I hope your internet is okay. Hey, it's just me now. I can see comments. Hey, Nick, that's so cool. Wow, I wasn't expecting that. Hopefully, Tiffany can pop back in. I guess it's my podcast now. Oh man, it's hard when it's a conversation. So if anybody's in the chat, I can read your comments now, and they would be very welcome right about now. If you have questions, if you want me to talk about any particular thing while we wait for Tiffany to come back. Brent says, hey. Thanks, Brent. Who else is here, guys? Thanks for watching, by the way. Yay, Jessica. Thank you. Thank you, thank you. Oh, here she is.
Yeah. I'm so sorry. My computer just completely shut off. So
All right.
I have no idea. So I'm on my phone. I am so sorry.
Okay.
For continuing to hold space for that.
Well, I got people commenting. That's what I did.
Oh, okay, cool. I love that. So where I left off was you were sitting next to him, but you had shifted your body.
Yeah.
So, and then reminding yourself that you needed to be by yourself.
Yeah. You had started making a comment, but I guess you wouldn't remember.
I don't remember in this moment. I mean, I have many questions that are coming through, but please continue because I'll remember them.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll just move on with the story. The next thing that happened was so as I turned my body, I ended up facing this tree. And I don't know if anyone, I know one person on the retreat I've shown this to.
Okay.
But this tree looked like a sexual being. And I was like, oh, I don't want to see this now. Like, really? I have to face the sexual stuff too? Like, really? I'm just dealing with abandonment. But I said, you know what? Opportunity. I said, I don't have to stay with it for long, but it's being offered. And who even knows if in the next morning, if that tree is even going to look like a sexual being. Because I don't know it's not like I studied every nook and cranny of that place, right? So it was an opportunity. It was a call for me.
Wow.
To sit with this energy. And I'll keep it private because it's a personal area, but it was one of those things where I could have easily just been like, nah, never mind, I'm gonna go, or I'm gonna space out of this and do something else. But I sat with it for a few minutes and I was like, okay. And it was like morphing. It was that's a sexual being just sort of over there, to then know that's a sexual being that is with me. I'm a sexual being. Like that whole, that's a challenging area for me, something I've been working on. And I got a little bit of a healing in that experience as a result. So that happened. And after that, I was like, okay, I think I'm ready to go lie down now. Like, I've done enough work.
Yeah.
And then I went back to the Maloka and lay down on my mat, and I wasn't alone. I didn't feel that abandoned, lonely thing anymore.
Mm.
But
Mm.
then I launched into a whole cycle of fear.
Oh, okay.
Just so freaking scared. And then there were also like opportunities in each ceremony. There are 3 opportunities to take the medicine.
Okay.
And by the time the second one came around, my first dose hadn't kicked in yet. I had a very slow uptake.
Wow.
So I was still waiting. But then, people were taking the second dose. And by the time the third one was offered, I was like, holy hell, no, thank you.
Okay.
Like, never again. Why did I do this to myself? This is so terrifying, because then, I mean, what ayahuasca does is it puts you face to face with yourself, the actual self, not the self you think you are,
Yeah.
not the preconceived ideas of who you want to be.
Yeah.
I mean, who you want to be may be shown you and kind of you may be guided, but it's like, okay, so if I'm scared, that's the real thing, And so I was really scared to lose my mind. I was very scared to leave my body. I was gripping, and I'm like, I know I'm gripping, and I know I'm supposed to surrender. And they teach you this too. You get some instruction. You're like, if you cannot fight this, like, do your best not to fight this,
Yeah.
I really tried, but I fought it the whole time. I think a lot of people did. I mean, the medicine works no matter what, she's scanning your body. She's going in places. I was purging too. It was intense, but so you had an optional second ceremony the next night
Okay.
that you could have signed up for, 2 hours before the ceremony if you wanted.
Oh, okay.
But I'm in the first one being like, holy shit, no, thank you. Never again.
Yeah.
I had that. I was so scared, like literally the whole time. I'm like, I'm going to die. I'm not going to come back to my body. I had no actual inner indicators of any of that. It was all made up.
Yeah. Yeah.
But, and then, okay, so then the big thing. So those weren't big things. Then the big thing. I have one small flash of an image of me going through a tunnel.
Okay.
A very quick, I'm in a tunnel. And then I'm like, oh my God, I'm being born. It's a birth. And however terrifying birth can be, I think for an infant, that's what happened. And it wasn't movement. It wasn't a movement. It was a psychic, like a inner experience.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I realized too, in retrospect, so my mother went into labor actually the day before I was born. I was born on the 27th. She went into labor on the 26th. She got to the
27th.
Yeah.
I'm born on the 27th as well.
Of course you are.
That's the number 27 started my awakening too. I saw that number everywhere. So how funny. Okay. Wow. Okay.
I love it. Yeah. So she went into labor on the 26th, gets to the birthing hospital, which like there was a separate hospital for that. And they're like, we don't have any doctors to take, to receive delivery. So they gave her some sort of drug and stopped the labor. So I realized that part of that abandoned, trapped feeling, I didn't use the word trapped before, but I felt in that darkness, I was trapped. I'm like, I'm in this maloka. I'm being affected by a medicine. I don't know how it's going to affect me. I felt trapped. And then I realized part of that trapped experience is because I was trapped in the womb for an extra day. I was ready to come out.
Wow.
But I wasn't given that opportunity. Not until noon the next day is when I was born. They had to restart labor chemically and the whole thing. So, and I really wish I had more words to describe the rest of that process. But at some point, I'll just say it was the end of that process. I finally lay back on my mat. And it was dark, but I swear there was a light on my face. I don't know how that's possible, but there was a light on my face. And I was just like, oh my God, I made it. I made it. And at one of those points, the shaman Paolo was walking by, and he's like, "Do you want more medicine?" I'm like, like, I'm good. I'm good. You know. And then, so the ceremony is kind of winding down, and Paolo was walking by. I think he was walking past every person. And he's like, "Vanessa, you look like a baby." Like, now he knew nothing of what happened to me. Nothing.
Yeah.
Not a word. I wasn't talking to him at all. He's like, "You look like a baby." I'm like, "Well, I was just born." So,
Wow.
and so the only thing I managed to write in my journal that night at like 3:15 in the morning or whatever was, "A birth goes as well as it can," because it was so freaking messy. I was scared. I was backwards. I was avoiding it. I was trapped. Scared a bunch more. It was a lot. And I was like, hell no to the next ceremony. I ain't doing it. And I didn't. I don't regret it, but I understood that if I had done a second ceremony, it would not have been the same experience. It was just my ego, my mind, so scared. The mind is most afraid of pain. Natalia taught me that.
Yeah.
So,
wow. When you're having these, and by the way, I have my phone propped. Can you hear me okay? Like,
yeah, it's all
okay.
good.
Cool.
Yeah.
When you're in you've consumed the plant medicine and you're sharing the energy, are these images coming like through your third eye, or is it more like a mushroom or psychedelic type experience where things are happening, like in your physical world as well? Maybe is it both?
It's not visual like a mushroom journey.
Okay.
It's not. It's more third eye. You're more like imaginative.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah. Although towards the end, I was noticing there would be like squiggles around lights, like auras and sort of these wavy things, but you knew it was because it was like a visual, just because your eyes are softened or something. I don't know the mechanism, but
Okay. When do you essentially sleep the next day? I mean, if you're up all night, like how does the next day look?
No, you don't really sleep. None of us really slept until probably 6 in the morning.
Okay.
And then you sleep a few hours. We had breakfast probably around 9:30 or 10 o'clock.
Okay.
And then after breakfast, you get together back in the Maloka and you integrate. You talk about what happened. It's like immediate.
Wow. Okay.
An opportunity. If something was really challenging or whatever, you're in circle.
Okay.
You're held, you're loved. You don't have to say absolutely everything, and there's no time to say absolutely everything.
Yeah. Okay.
You say the important stuff. And there are other opportunities to do integration, both in circle and one-on-one during the retreat. At least there is in this group, in this organization.
Okay. When you're doing the integration component, did you, albeit it's an individual experience, but did you find a lot of commonalities, shared experiences? I can imagine that you would.
There's some, but what I actually found most comforting is the variety of like people going back to past lives, and some people battling entities, and other people like going into their recent traumas. And so it was the variety and just knowing and learning what can happen for people, because everything depends on your history, right? And
absolutely. Yeah. The lives, your parents, your everything that was contracted, right? Before we incarnated, we picked all these players. And then we're born with amnesia. We don't know, what we're here for, who we owe, what we're here to learn.
Yeah.
And that's the beauty of free will and destiny. Like the destiny is the meeting, but if you don't even look up to engage with the person or dismiss them,
Right.
then what they were there to teach you or offer you is not going to be presented through them.
You know,
um,
it's interesting you say that, because the minute I stepped foot onto the retreat like grounds,
yeah.
I was the last one to arrive because my plane was late. But literally everybody's sitting around just like dining table and like we're having dinner. Everybody looked familiar to me immediately. Like I was like, I know all of you. I
Yeah.
know all of
Yeah.
you. It was
Yeah.
amazing. Yeah.
It looks like we just got what Nick shared, and we all talked together individually, integrating amongst each other, helping each other find clarity in our own journeys. That's really beautiful.
Yeah.
Um, that's so beautiful.
And sometimes that allowed us to go deeper and share some of the nuances and some of the things that are maybe harder to say in public.
Well, especially like you had shared earlier, and I've had experiences like this where I didn't know what I was experiencing to even have the words to describe it till months later.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, yeah, and we had an integration circle on Zoom probably a
Oh,
month.
okay.
We have
Okay.
another one coming up in a couple of weeks,
Yeah.
because you're right, the integration. So there's integration is a bunch of different things, like some of which are what actually happened,
Yeah.
and some of them are how did you take the messages into your life and what did you do with them? So, or did you?
Right.
There's the
Right.
resistance.
Yeah. I I want to share a little story about myself. I sold my house in 2021. I had an awakening in 2020, and I found myself, I think it was the winter of 2021 in Arizona. And I was there for about 3 weeks. And I felt anxiety building and building and building. It was rooted in scarcity around finances. I wasn't working. I think I had like $8,000 left. Um, and all of a sudden I realized, I told myself, like, I don't need to be here. I want to go back to Washington State. That was the solution in my mind. Something, and I was in Sedona, which I don't know if you've heard, it's, a vortex. And some of the folks I met were like, you're either going to be there or she kicks you out. I just wasn't supposed to be there at that time. But ironically enough, the morning that I'm leaving, I get about 9 miles down the road. I stop to get gas and my RV won't start.
Mm.
I'm like, well, fuck, maybe I wasn't supposed to leave, you know? I call around to a few different places and I get a hold of this guy, and I'm going to keep his name. I'm not going to share his name. But I get a hold of this guy and he's like, I'll be there, within, a little bit of time. So he shows up, and within an hour of me meeting him, I'm in his RV doing DMT with him.
Wow.
And, but as I'm at this gas station, he offers me this experience, which was kind of the intention of me going to Arizona. I was like, I'm going to find this. And the moment he offers it to me, I immediately say, no, 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 no. And he's like, I don't know how many more synchronicities you need, but we met here. We were living at the same RV park. I'm offering exactly, Nick. He was sent to me. But that experience, it was like 12 minutes long. I smoked it. But when I did it, how I would describe it was almost as if it was going into the womb. It was like all of a sudden I was somewhere else in an entirely different universe, timeline, experience. Um, for me, what I know today, where I went, if you've ever looked up the seraphim angels, they almost look like geometric shapes. But I was in an entirely different place. But when I came out of it, it was like, I just remember the first thing that I said is that I can be and do anything that I want. and everything is love. I just remember I just met this man and I was like, "Can I hold you?" I just wanted to be in his arms. It was just a really beautiful experience, but very small amount of time, and the any anxiety that I felt was completely dissolved. It was completely gone in 12 minutes. It was amazing.
Wow.
We have like, thank you, Jessica. It was beautiful. Um, Man, I just want to share with folks that are listening to this. Um, Below in this description box of this video should be my contact information. I, on Sundays is when I go live. If you have a story that you would like to share with folks, contact me. Let's get together and let's create something. Let's help raise the vibration of Earth. We have like 40 or so minutes left. I want to hear about your second part of your journey.
Okay.
Yeah.
The other medicine.
Give
So,
other medicine. Correct.
and I
Please.
think while you were gone, somebody had posted a question about
Oh, please.
talking about how ayahuasca and wachuma complement one another. So
Beautiful.
I want to
Yes.
make sure to connect to that.
However, yes, please do. Thank you for catching that.
Yeah, yeah. So wachuma, so whereas ayahuasca is a grandmother energy of
Okay.
feminine force,
Okay.
wachuma is a grandfather energy, masculine force.
Wow. Okay.
However, I don't know if you had a good grandpa. I did. I was very
I
lucky.
had an excellent grant. I had a
You
love.
know how much love there is,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
wachuma puts you in your heart.
Okay.
Puts you in your heart. It's a daytime ceremony.
Okay.
You take that in the morning on an empty stomach,
Okay.
and you are in it. I think it arcs up for 3 hours, and then it stays up for about 5 hours, and then it arcs down for another 2 or 3 hours.
Okay.
So it's a long, long, long time to be in whatever you're going to be in, you know. So it took a while for it to arc up because, you know, it does. And initially I was just journaling. I didn't know what else to do. I just sat there and looked at the leaves, and I just kind of was like, all right, you know, I guess it's a time to be meditative. And the first, I don't remember how long, if you guys remember in the chat, I think it was like the first 4 hours or something.
Okay.
You're supposed to hold what's called noble silence. So you don't talk to people. You're in your own experience. Afterwards, you start to interact a little bit. Afterwards, there's like other parts of this experience, but initially you're quiet to yourself. So I was outside for a while, just kind of, there were like these nice comfy couches, outdoor couches, and I just sat there and enjoyed it. And then I heard music coming from the Maloka. And I should say, I'm going to back up for just a second. Oh, thanks, Jessica, 6 hours. I'm going to back up for a second. Part of the ayahuasca experience are these icaros, the songs.
Okay.
They are medicine songs, and they have a lot of purpose, some of which is to hold space and keep the entities and keep the portals and all of that to be in clean, good, solid, grounded energy. And I also found them incredibly comforting when I was going through the hard, dark night of the soul kind of energy. I found the Icaros very, very comforting. So then in the Huachuma, it's the same songs, you know, but I start hearing music and I'm just drawn. I'm like, I got to go where the music is. And I'm a singer, like an amateur singer, but you know, I've always sung. I saw people doing yoga in there, and I was like, I want to go be in that group. So you with Huachuma, you're much more grounded, so you're not wobbly the way you are with ayahuasca. So you can go further out. You can go to the pool if you want. Like, you still don't leave the premises, you know, but you kind of have a little bit more of an experience. You could go to your room if you wanted for a little bit, you know, if you wanted to grab something. Whereas with ayahuasca, you don't, you know, you stay within you know, so that you can be seen. But But anyway, I wanted to go into the Maloka, closer to the circle, and went through a few things internally. I felt sad for a bit. The same brother that I had connected to with ayahuasca, I saw him having a hard time, and I could tell I was kind of like, what's the word, like stuck in my process. I didn't know which way to allow it or which way to move it. And I looked at him, he was standing, and I just kind of went like this, and I just said, bless you, bless you, bless you 3 times. And that got, and he kind of acknowledged it, and don't even know if he remembers it at this point, but I do. Because that's what actually allowed me to start having my own process, like deeper. I started crying. And then the music. So it's very, very hard to say what happened when in that quote. But there was music. I was kind of struggling with how much space to take up. Another one.
Like with the amount of like noise you're making, is it with like just your body? What do you mean by taking up the space?
Movement.
Yeah.
Like people were dancing.
Yeah.
Not a party kind of dancing, obviously, right? You're in medicine, but you were still moving, and you're moving more freely potentially than you're used to. So in that way, but also in terms of, do you approach people? Do you have a quick conversation? Do you exchange a word or two? Like, I think, it's not like they ring a bell when the noble silence is over and say, that, it's very organic that way. So I struggled with that. And, but I started singing, and I started kind of like allowing myself to sing more and more, and I got a lot of reflection from my brothers and sisters about that as well. That was, needed.
So beautiful.
And I definitely opened up my voice in a way that hadn't been. And mind you, like, I was singing at home regularly. I was preparing for like a Christmas concert and stuff, but this is a different kind of singing, And then I want to share this one kind of semi-protracted experience that was really, really profound, and probably definitely changed how I show up as a therapist.
Okay.
So there was a man, also I'm not going to share his name because I didn't ask permission, but so I noticed the men in the ceremony. Thanks, Nick. The men in the ceremony, and I probably shouldn't blanket this as much, but I noticed several men in the ceremonies had a harder time with Huachuma than did the women. Because if it puts you in your heart, and we women tend to have an easier time of it, just culturally, then those who have a harder time are going to suffer, and they're going to resist. And so this man was sitting on the floor, like retching, and Huachuma can also mean, I was queasy most of the day. I didn't purge, but it can make you purge sometimes. And he's having a hard time. He doesn't look like himself. He's looking off the 1,000-yard stare, and Natalia is helping him. But Natalia doesn't speak a word of, 2 words of English,
Wow. Okay.
And most of the time she was communicating with people just in Russian, and, people understood energetically.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But at one point she came up to me in this, and she said, can you tell him? So now she's asking me to help.
Yeah.
Tell him to love himself. That's what she said. And because she's like, this is what he's suffering with. She's like, look, this is what happens when you don't love yourself. You suffer and suffer and suffer when the medicine is trying to go to your heart.
Yeah.
So I sat down next to him, and I said, Natalia wants to tell you, love yourself, right? And he's kind of like, okay, but like you can tell he wants to, but he's having a really hard time. So now I'm in a position where, am I helper or am I participant?
Yeah.
And can I step away, or do I even want to? You know, I want to stay and keep helping him, but then am I keeping myself from my own experience? And I think that came up for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Right? So, but then I look at Natalia, and Natalia is dancing. And as people in the chat will attest, her dancing is angelic, because you're also wearing white, you know, but the way she moved and like just the flow of the fabric. And I looked at her, she looked so joyous. Hi, Janice. She looked so joyous, but I could see that it was a healing dance. It was like an energy dance. So this is one of those things where I could put it into words now, but in the moment, I just got it like that. I got it magically. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
I made up a word. I like it.
I love it.
Where I realized, and I was like, I'm going to test this. What I realized was, you heal people by going deeper into your own heart. And that's what she was doing. She knew she wasn't going to push him in any way or encourage him or anything to go into his heart. The best she could do, and that's no small thing, right? But is to go deeper and amplify her own heart. And at that point, I was like, I'm going to try this. If there's ever a time, here it is. So I got up, the music is still going. And so I start dancing. And so now I'm aware of this man and his struggle. He's still struggling, still holding on to his bucket, even though he's not throwing up, but he's like, you know, and I'm dancing. And I'm like, amplify. And pictured this. I pictured my heart as a flame that was bigger. I just, whatever I could. And I'm dancing. And so now I'm opening up. Now I feel amplified, right? I feel joyous, and I'm dancing and I'm moving. And then I look at this man, and he pushes his bucket off to the side. He's like, I'm done with this. I'm like, oh my God, I think it's working. And I'm not trying to help him. I'm aware that he is stuck, and he could be helped if he receives this energy, could be helped if there's this, you know, love in the room. And it was such a tremendous lesson for me. Then someone else comes in just in the room to join, and I'm like hugging her. I'm like, I got it. Like, I was like, I genuinely understood something in my body in that lesson, thanks to Natalia, that I can't even, you know, it was tremendous. It was tremendous. And we've talked about it after, me and this man, and he didn't have that experience because he wasn't in my body, but he knew, and he said as much, that the women in the room, because I wasn't the only one doing this, right? There were several of us dancing around him. And it's kind of like, sounds really weird when you say it like that, like, you know, we're dancing around him, like we're sort of there to please him. Like, not at all. We're dancing for ourselves. We're amplifying our own hearts and our own, like, feminine force, divine feminine. You know, like, I started dancing, I started moving my hips in ways that I used to be too ashamed before. It was unbelievable. I can't even. I'm so grateful. John is my husband. Hi, John.
Oh, is that right? We have two Johns in here.
John Risky.
Yeah. Well, hi, John. So if I'm understanding, when you, the let's say enlightenment or knowledge that you were called, was that the power that you have through your own heart for others.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So when I got back and I, you know, started seeing clients again after a little while, that was resonating. And I knew if I'm stuck with a client or in a session or whatever, like, pushing more and trying to explain things differently, or even trying to encourage them verbally, like, it's not
Yeah.
going to happen. And
Yeah.
if I can drop into my heart,
Yeah.
like literally just put my awareness there, breathe into it,
Yeah.
that's when things can actually shift and have the potential to shift, if ever they will,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it's still up to the person to receive it.
Wow. 100%. I got into yesterday evening. I wait tables in the evenings. And I got into a squabble with somebody at work. Let's put it that way. And how would I describe it? Uh, the opportunity on my end for future, I had an expectation of someone. And I shouldn't have expectations of anybody, even myself. That's just like unnecessary pain. Um, but this person's response to the ask I had was clearly a trauma response. A lot of anger was presented.
Mm.
Um, a lot of, let's say, belief systems around how people are supposed to interact. At any rate, it was still with me even like 3 hours ago this morning.
Wow.
And I was like, um, I got into a state of love and reminding myself that I am love, I am peace, and really repeating that over and over. And all of the sudden, and I also released any expectation I have of this person, and all of a sudden, just my body felt so much lighter.
Mm.
And they sent a text message as well. And I just am going to say, I haven't responded yet because it was right before we started, but I don't need anything from this person. 3 hours ago, I did. 3 hours ago, I needed you to know this and this and this and this. And now I'm like, okay, dude, I love you too. Like
Wow.
everything's okay. We're, like, um, thank you for, the experience. So,
Yeah.
it's
Ultimately, the responsibility is our own, right? Like,
100%.
yeah.
100%. But old me would have like tried to, I'm going to like enlighten this person. I'm going to show them where they could have, what they're doing wrong. It's like, who the fuck am I? You know what I mean? Like, really, who the fuck am I?
Yeah.
And it's like, dude, cool. I love you. And let's, not saying like, let's just move on and sweep it under the rug, but like, I don't need anything from you. I don't need an apology. I don't need an explanation. We're here right now. That happened yesterday. So,
Mm. Wow.
um,
Pretty
yeah,
nice for a few hours in.
yeah. What's, I, I used to, my ego used to like being right was really important to me. And I'm like, we're all right in our own mind. You know what I mean? And that's
Yeah.
Brene Brown. One of the quotes that resonates with me is she's like, I don't want to be right. I want to get it right.
Yeah.
And so, like, I don't need to be right. I want to get it right. And so, whatever that looks like. And also, just taking myself out of the equation. Like, what does this person need? I'm going to apologize. I'll apologize. I have no problem apologizing. It's almost like making it not about me, which is really freeing.
Right.
So, let's see here. Couple of questions. I know that you are in New York. Could people work with you? Like, I don't know if anybody's listening or going to watch this at a later date, and maybe they energetically resonate with you. Um, I believe you sent me quite a bit of information. Could people have access to you, like to work one on one?
Yeah, I have a website. I think it's in the comments.
Okay.
And I have a scheduler built in into my website. So
Okay.
yeah, I do psychotherapy. I do psychedelic integration work,
Okay.
and I do dream analysis.
Oh yeah, let's talk about it. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I have openings in my very limited, but I have
Yeah.
openings in my schedule right now.
Okay.
Yeah,
Beautiful.
love to work.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Okay. If you are open to this, well, I was going to move on. If anybody has never watched before, I have a jar of questions. I never know there's probably like 200 of them in here. I never really know what's going to come out. They're normally, existential type questions.
Great.
Um,
Before you do that, I just have
Please.
one more thing to add.
I would love that. Please.
Just, yeah, and I'm curious about the questions. I've seen you pull them,
Yeah.
and I don't know how to answer that, but I just wanted to say one of the most important things when you come to a retreat like that is your intentions,
Oh, yeah.
and formulating the intentions. And when I was talking about ayahuasca, but it's true for both, for any medicine you're taking, is your answers are going to be your answers. Your journey is going to be in response to those intentions. Right. So when you were saying, did you have this like similar experiences with people? And the reason I said there's all this variety is because everyone's intentions are different.
Yeah.
And so then when you interpret the journeys later, you try to understand them, you have to go back to what were your intentions? What were the questions you were asking? And so when you go up to receive your cups, 1 or 2 or 3 cups of medicine,
Yeah.
you hold the cup in your, it's not this kind of cup, but you hold the cup in your hand, and you breathe, and you feel your intentions into the medicine before you drink it.
Yeah.
And it's so important, because I think this is also addressing people who just want to be fixed. Like, this is a problem, I'm struggling with this, or I'm sick with this illness, or I have this, whatever, right? I have this problem, I can't, I don't trust men or whatever. They just want to take something, be shown the answer, and move on. It doesn't work like that. So the intentions also connect to what is your responsibility. I just didn't want to miss saying
I
that.
love that. I love that. Well, I would say that's in anything and everything that we do.
Yeah.
Because the same, when I even think about sometimes when I'm working with folks, they'll have some sort of behavior that they want to do, some sort of action. And the same action can be rooted in fear or love. It just depends on what's the intention behind it. And so I love that, just as a daily check-in multiple times a day. What am I doing, and how does this align
Yeah.
with who I am, and what I have a couple of videos that I've made around like, what are your core values? When, so often I think in life, and even for me, my core values were my mom's, or were the companies that I worked for. And it was like I had pain in my heart, and I didn't know where it was coming from until I realized that I was living under the disguise of deceit. And it was deceit of my own heart. And so how fun, though, that you get this like list of 200 core values, and you get to pick your own. And then whenever you're doing something, you're going on an adventure, signing up for a new class, engaging in a new friendship, it's like, all right, these are my top 10 core values. How does this align with this action or this relationship? They can be really great, compasses for us. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. That's
Right.
beautiful.
And, multiply that by a million when you're going to sit with a medicine as powerful as ayahuasca,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I have a friend, and I didn't have permission to use her name, but she lives locally, and she sits in ceremony. It has many times, and she's actually on a pathway to become a shaman. There's a specific breath work. There's a lot of, I want to say, training, because I mean it's more than training that goes into it. And so I have access to that when I'm ready for it. I'm just not quite ready for it yet.
Yeah.
But I'll know when it's the time. It'll be, and she's offered that as a an offering through her. So,
It's wonderful.
um, is there anything else that you would like to share that I didn't ask about you?
Mm. That was the main thing. I just didn't
Okay.
want to forget.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that would go for anything. Like, for myself, I'm on a journey of really reclaiming and having unconditional love for my body. And I stopped taking Adderall in 2021, It's not like my ADHD went away. I just knew I didn't need that anymore. But as a consequence, I gained almost 40 pounds.
Mm.
And, thin always had value in in the life, that I was programmed in. And so, I started going to the gym this last May, and I just thoroughly enjoy moving my body and connecting and seeing it evolve into something. But I have to be really careful around the intention of it. That I'm going to be stronger, not to achieve some sort of image,
Right.
and also like not going on this extreme diet or doing, it's like these quick fixes where it's not rooted in love, and I'm expecting some sort of as if my body when I was thinner wasn't a problem. It was a problem then. So it's not my body, it's my perception
Yeah.
of my body.
Well, and something like that where the action, kind of matches and like you said, it can be fear or it could be love, right? When it
Yeah.
matches this old pattern, this old neural pathway,
Yeah.
right? Then it can just come right back up as like, oh, you know what? If I do this 3 times a day, and well, imagine how strong I'm going to get if, and it's
Obsessive.
obsessive. Yeah.
Yes, 100%. That's like, I don't even weigh myself on purpose. I don't care what I weigh. And if I do know what I weigh, I'll start,
Yeah.
so there's just certain behaviors that I don't even engage with because it's just not high vibrational for me.
Right.
So,
Yeah. I stopped
I,
weighing myself for like 10 years or something like that. Now I don't have that toxic relationship with the number. I used to. It used to mean everything to me.
and it was like for me, actually, I didn't ever care what the number was. It was always thinner. That was always the goal. It was always thinner. There was never a goal weight. It was always just thinner. So, um, well, beautiful. If it's okay, I'm gonna move on to one of these. Okay. All right. So we'll
See,
see. And I made these months ago, so I don't even remember all of them. So this is the one that Spirit is presenting in this moment.
okay.
Oh, this is beautiful. How can I deepen my connection with nature?
Mm.
Mhm.
I mean, go to nature.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Be in it.
Go to
Yeah.
nature. Go be in nature. And you know what? If all you have is a house plant, that's nature. You could talk to a house plant. Each plant will have their own personality. They are living beings. They are breathing too. They just don't breathe with lungs like we do. If you talk to a tree, trees are amazing listeners. They will take they will receive, you know. And they'll also, if you know how to listen, they will also tell you stuff, if you ask questions. And we just moved and I had an amazing garden. And it was the first time I had a garden. And I was so sad because we had to move. I was too sick in the house. We had to move. But I had, I was going to miss the garden. I am going to miss, I'm already missing it. But I went out there before, like, as it became solid that we were definitely going to be out, and I talked to the land. I sobbed. Oh my God, all this emotion came up, and I just thanked the land, and I thanked all the plants and all the trees, and every little nook and cranny of that place held us. So that's, it doesn't take, I'm not a shaman yet, but anyone can, if all you have is a little bonsai tree or whatever, that's your nature. But most people can walk outside. If there's no trees or even grass, you still have sky. You still have that.
Birds. That's what
Yeah.
I mean. Birds are around her.
Yeah.
That's so beautiful. That like brought emotion to me.
Mm.
I think too often as well, we forget that we're animals.
Yeah.
And
Right.
that we are part of nature. I don't remember, there was some study, and maybe it was something that I heard on social media. So, but it really resonated. It was like how quickly the feeling of depression, isolation, loneliness by just going outside, how quickly that can be alleviated from you.
Yeah.
And that a lot of times people might not go outside for days in a row, just living inside of their houses. So I think that's really beautiful. There
Yeah.
is outside of my RV right now. If you've ever, you can look up this there's a hummingbird feeding like a foot away. I have a feeder right outside the window here, and it's called an Anna's hummingbird, which one of my guides, her name is Anna, and it's got this beautiful, it's a ruby neck, but it almost has like wings on the side of it. So more nature.
Yeah.
Let's get this one actually just wanted to pop out. So we're going to go to this question. Ooh, I love this question. What is the importance of gratitude?
Oh my God, it's everything.
Yeah.
Without it, you're just a shriveled ball of nothing. Yeah, gratitude is how you get in your heart.
Yeah.
You know, and for people who have a hard time, if you're depressed, you know, that's the quickest way. And it can be actually hard even, you know, if they're like, I don't know, I'm not thankful for anything. You know, well, are you thankful for the fact that you could take a breath right now? I bet if you couldn't take that breath right now, you'd be pretty miserable, right? So there's always something. And it's about having the intention um,
Yes.
to recognize gratitude wherever possible. So I bless my food. I bless the herbs that I take,
Mm, mm,
right?
mm.
Um,
Amen.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Gratitude to spirit, gratitude to guides and ancestors, right? Like sometimes I went through periods where I was having a hard time and I would wake up, and I made it a practice where the moment would wake up, I would say, thank you for this day. And it's, you know, it can be one of those antidepressants, you know, in a real way.
Absolutely. Well, and through the law of attraction, it's just going to create more of that for you, which is the beautiful
Oh,
thing.
sure,
You
sure.
know, and so I think that that's so beautiful. um and it's interesting you bring up breath because in 2020, going through this awakening, that was like kind of the first time I'd even heard of like self-care or self-love, and I had no idea consciously where to enter that, and I entered through breath.
Mm,
Just being, I just hold your breath. It hurts. And then you allow yourself to breathe in, and it's like, oh my gosh, it's such a deep form of love that too often we just take for granted.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That's beautiful.
We're kind of preaching to the choir here, you know. I think anybody,
100%.
yeah,
Yeah.
from
Yeah.
this, it's like, yeah, gratitude's where it's at.
It really is 100%. Even I have found it helpful with clients, and maybe you have too, is like if they're struggling to love themselves unconditionally, having a gratitude journal for themselves and writing
Mhm.
down something about themselves they're grateful for as a reminder to reflect on. Um, because, you know, words will become your truth if you're around it enough. So, yeah,
Yeah,
yes,
you.
gratitude is medicine.
It just reminded me of that moment I was telling you about with the candle, you know, with in the ceremony where I was like essentially forgave my mom. It really comes from acknowledging the with gratitude what she actually went through and did. She kept me alive. She did her best, right? There's all this gratitude, and you just don't use that language necessarily, but I think it helps if you do, you know, because you know when you're growing up and everything's happening to you and you internalize all these beliefs about yourself, it's hard to say, oh, thanks mom, you did your best. Like, no, that wasn't enough is where you start, you know. And in therapy and with my clients in my own therapy, right, you start with the acknowledgement that that wasn't enough. It's okay to start there, but then eventually you go to this place, and I think ayahuasca really helped me just
Yeah.
kind of push that forward of like gratitude for what she did do.
Yeah.
She brought me here. she brought me here so I could have this experience. So I could walk the earth and figure out what I'm doing and why I'm doing it, and bless other people and hopefully heal the planet a little bit. So there's
I'm working on a course right now. I started in March. It's a course that's teaching me how to create courses, and all this information is coming to me already. But it's going to be around mind, body, and soul, and reframing the mind, reclaiming the body, and then remembering who we are. And to your point, those things absolutely happen, but we can reframe them. We can reframe the way in which we experienced what we did, and like from a place of gratitude or understanding, as opposed to, I don't want to say being victim, but which means to be powerless. And we're not powerless.
right.
We have choice. And, especially once we reach adulthood, we definitely have choices most of the time.
Exactly. When you're a child, you have much less choice and you feel
100%.
powerless. And depending on the kind of parents you have, you feel very powerless.
Correct.
Right.
Yes.
But then recognizing that as an adult, you have choice.
Correct. Yeah. Which is a really beautiful thing. It's like if somebody says to me like life is hell, it's like, I believe you. I believe you. That's your truth. And so I believe you, but you can make a different choice.
When someone says that, when they say life is hell, even the word is, right? Like they have defined it and they have solidified it, as opposed to even saying like life feels like hell right now it's like a temporary state, right? So when they say life is hell, they are perpetuating the hell.
Yes. Yes. It's like every time we say anything, it's like doubling down on the highways and freeways that exist in our brain.
Yeah.
And obviously we can make new highways, but it takes intention and being rooted in that intention. Well, we're coming up to the end of our time together. I am so grateful that Janice introduced the two of us, that so graciously, with humility and vulnerability, shared your story. It's like we're all connected by these invisible strings. And so you just have no idea what kind of activation in another person that you could have just created. It's just really beautiful. Or gave them permission to do something. Again, who knows, but I can guarantee because of it's rooting in love, it will be of benefit to the universe. So,
yeah.
Yeah.
I have a little saying underneath my computer if I ever need a little anchor, and it says, "May love be spoken." And it's, it was my intention coming into this may love be spoken so that it can, like I did with that man in Pachuma, right? Like, let me be love so that if someone is at the moment where they can receive love, let there be a little nugget of love available.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. A couple of things before we head out, I want to share with folks. On Thursdays, I go live where I do live channeled readings. I have a lot of spiritual gifts. And so if you're interested in receiving a reading from me, they're 30 minutes long. It is going to be shared publicly on YouTube, but contact me and we can chat about that. And then also next Sunday, I'm super excited. I've got a guest coming on who works in the healing arts, and she's an astrologer. And we're specifically going to be talking about the March and April transits, stuff that's happening with us here. So I'd love for you to join us. If not, you can catch it later. It is recorded. So thank you to everybody who joined today, and shared your energy. You could be quite literally doing so many other things. And so I just want to make sure that, you know how grateful I am for that. So
yeah, thank you, everybody. Thank you, Tiffany.
You're so welcome. I love you. I love you. One day I hope to meet you in person,
Definitely. We're
Yes.
manifesting it now.
Yes. Yes. I love that. All right. Well, everybody, have a wonderful rest of your day, and I hope to share some energy with you in the future.
All right. Bye.